Hello ladies and gentlemen, I am the Omni Viewer, here with another quick little reaction / review / first thoughts on a movie I've seen in theaters. Today, Spider-Man Homecoming, the long-awaited entry of Spider-Man into the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Or I should say his first solo outing in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, since his first appearance was Captain America: Civil War. This is a movie that I know a lot of Marvel fans have wanted to have happen for a very, very long time. Pretty much since the Marvel Cinematic Universe started, really. And, well, it's officially happened. He's got his first solo movie, and I'm sure a lot of people are wondering how it is. Because you've got a lot of people, I keep saying people a lot in this video so far, sorry about that. But so far, I have to say it, lots of people are saying that this is one of the greatest Spider-Man movies ever. It's amazing. Yeah, pun probably intended. Best Spider-Man movie of all time, stuff like that. Well, I didn't hate it, but I don't know if it's the best one of all time. I think a lot of where the praise is coming from, once you weed out the people who just automatically don't want Spider-Man in the hands of Sony anymore, I think a lot of it is coming from the fact that our most recent memory of Spider-Man is from the Amazing Spider-Man movies. Which, I mean, I only saw the first one and it was okay. Like, I saw it and I thought, well, that was alright, but didn't we do this already? And I didn't even bother seeing the second one. The original Sam Raimi movies I've seen, and I like all of them. Yes, even Spider-Man 3. It wasn't the best of the trilogy, but by no means was it bad enough to warrant a reboot. So, I think it's that which is really getting people riled up. They were so let down by the last two movies that anything else would have been met with praise almost. So, and yeah, this is a good movie. I want to make that very clear, but it's not necessarily good because of the story. It's not an origin story. They're not bothering with that again because you don't need to at this point. We've gotten it twice by now. Spider-Man's a fairly mainstream character, so you probably already know it anyway. So, yeah, they didn't bother. They mention it like a couple of times, but otherwise there's very little emphasis put on it. But otherwise, barring that part, if you've seen the first Sam Raimi movie or you saw the first Amazing Spider-Man movie, the plots are very similar. There are very similar beats to it, especially to the first Sam Raimi movie. You know how it goes. Peter's trying to balance a whole bunch of stuff and get up the courage to ask out the girl of his dreams, and then he has to deal with the villain, but things get very complicated with the villain in kind of the ways you would expect from the first movie. I hope that doesn't count as a spoiler, but like I said, the plot is not where this movie's strength lies. So, yeah, if you've seen the first two origin movies, you've seen the plot of Spider-Man Homecoming. So then the question becomes, what makes this different? What does this movie do to justify its existence apart from those two? And predominantly what it does different is with the characters. This is, of course, a much younger Peter Parker. Tom Holland is playing him as, I think they say 15 in the movie. So, still very young. And that's how Peter Parker started in the comics. He was very young. Not like in the other movies where he was, okay, let's see. He graduated high school in the first Sam Raimi movie, and was basically a young adult from then on. And I think it was like really late high school, like senior year of high school or something in Amazing Spider-Man. He was younger than Tobey Maguire's Spidey, but still fairly old, all things considered. But this Spider-Man is a kid. And that does have a huge impact on how things play out, because now we're seeing a Spider-Man who is far more impulsive, and it makes more sense that he would make a lot of really bad decisions because he's a kid. He doesn't have all the experience. He has a very, I don't want to say simple view of the world. He's a bit more naive, I guess. So he thinks that, I'm trying to phrase it in a way that doesn't make him sound bad, but okay. He makes a lot of mistakes, and they are understandable mistakes because of his age. And that's interesting to see, because like so far in a lot of the Marvel movies, like you can look at some of the mistakes that characters make, like in Iron Man 3, let's say. One of the biggest criticisms of how that story plays out is that Tony Stark gives the Mandarin his address and basically calls him out to a fight. And we all see how that plays out. I mean, since Tony Stark's a public figure anyway, his address probably would have been easy to look up, but at the same time, he was calling out a terrorist, and he is a middle-aged man who he should know better. Even knowing that he was fairly irresponsible for most of his life leading up to when he became Iron Man and had to start taking responsibility, like even knowing how irresponsible Tony Stark is, that part he should have known better. And it's really hard to try and excuse that, especially given how old he is. But Spider-Man is a kid. If he were to do something like that, if he were to make a really, really bad decision that could have gotten people killed, that makes a bit more sense. That you can automatically go, well, yeah, of course he would do that. He doesn't know what he's doing. So yeah, that has a huge impact on how things play out. The inclusion of Tony Stark is also one thing that really sets this apart. I've heard people say it looked like he was going to be playing the quote-unquote Uncle Ben role, since Uncle Ben is already dead in this one. But it's not quite that way. I mean, obviously because it's Tony Stark and he's not as wise as Uncle Ben, and partly because Tony Stark is also Iron Man, which means he has a more direct impact on the action. I won't spoil in what way, even though the trailers kind of already show some of that. But the way he mentors Peter, it's very interesting to see, because it actually shows that Stark has grown. And I guess it ties back to Iron Man 3, actually. He knows what it's like to make these stupid decisions that put people's lives in danger, and you think you're doing the right thing, but really it's the worst possible thing you could do. And he's gone through Iron Man 3, he's gone through the other two Iron Man movies as well, he's gone through both Avengers movies, he's gone through Civil War, he's got all this experience in superheroing, and now he's seeing Peter Parker starting to do stuff that's way too similar to what he's doing, and he has to step in now. It's fascinating to see in that regard. Like, he's not just there to be the connective tissue. It's not just including him so they can say, yep, we're in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Look at how we are in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, because Tony Stark is here, and they're at the Avengers facility, and wow, aren't we part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe? It's not like that at all, trust me. He is actually an integral part of this story. You'd have to severely rewrite a lot of it if you wanted to take him out. So that's another part that makes it interesting. And there's also the supporting cast, which includes the villain. Now, I said there are a lot of similarities to the Sam Raimi Spider-Man and the Amazing Spider-Man. That doesn't mean that Vulture is just a retread of Green Goblin and Lizard. Not in any way. I mean, yeah, there's a similarity to Green Goblin in particular, because he's got the technology and he's flying around and he makes it personal. But he's not just Norman Osborn 2.0, and he's not just Kirk Connors 2.0. That's the Lizard, in case you've forgotten. I assume you must know. I mean, you're watching this and you're a Spider-Man fan, right? But anyway, he is his own distinct character. Even though some of the plot points are similar to previous movies, he is his own character. He's an interesting character and makes for a good villain. Makes for a very good villain, a good foil to Spider-Man. Maybe not a perfect foil in the way some other villains have been, but good first supervillain for this new Spidey. And with the supporting cast, I mean, you've got Peter's friend Ned. He's funny, and not just there for comic relief. He is, again, a part of the plot. He serves a purpose, other than to just be a goofball. Love interest Liz, this tends to happen a lot in superhero movies in general, but Spider-Man movies in particular. She's not the best realized character, because that's just kind of the way the story played out. I mean, she's got just enough of a personality that's different from the norm that makes her just a bit more interesting than Mary Jane was in the Sam Raimi films, or at least the first Sam Raimi film, because she's part of the academic. She's part of like that group that goes to Washington to go to the National Academicathlon or whatever it's called. So she's actually really smart, and there are a couple scenes that hint at her, despite being the pretty girl who was admired by all, that there are a couple things that hint at her being like a bit more of a nerd, I guess you would say, than you would first think. Not that she's a nerd girl or anything, but she's got just enough quirks that she doesn't feel like just the idealized perfection of woman who the hero yearns for. She's got a bit more character than that, but at the same time, she's not really in the movie all that much. And one especially big plot detail, which I will not spoil, but I will say this, pardon the vehicles going by, I will say this about it: it should have had a much bigger impact, but we don't see it. That's all I'll say. But, you know, she's not a bad character. And then there's the other girl. But that would be a tremendous spoiler to reveal the big twist with her at the end. And I try to keep these things spoiler-free, so maybe I'll discuss it in a different video. I don't know, but I'm not sure how I feel about her. But enough about that. So, yeah, overall, I will say Spider-Man Homecoming is good. Oh, there is something interesting, though, because I know a lot of people have been wondering just how this whole deal between Marvel and Sony works. When the movie starts, and this is, I thought this was interesting at least, I definitely noticed it. The first thing we see is the Sony logo transforming into the Columbia logo, and it's a very elaborate, very, like, visually stunning, or at least trying to be visually stunning transition that looks like the sort of incredible studio logo you would expect from one of these big budget movies. Then you get the first scene, the cold open, I guess, where we learn Vulture's origin, and then you get the Marvel Studios logo. So I see that and I think, okay, cool, pecking order established. Because it was never the intention of this deal for Spider-Man to go back to Marvel. If someone told you that, someone lied. It's more like joint custody, really. Spider-Man is still technically at Sony. It's just that Marvel is now allowed to use him, and they have a bit more creative control over what Sony is doing. But at the same time, he's still at Sony, and the arrangement of the studio logos kind of carry just a hint of that idea that Sony isn't quite done with the whole, what's the polite way to put it? There's still a bit of a rivalry there, I think. There's still a bit of bad blood. So, I don't know, we'll see. I mean, the Spider-Man thing is moving forward, and he's gonna be in the next Avengers movie, so who knows? But, yeah, otherwise, like I said, Spider-Man Homecoming is good. I don't know if it's my favorite entry of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, though, because, I mean, Spider-Man's a good character and all, but part of me feels like we've already seen it all before, and again, though I don't hate Spider-Man, I think that Marvel's been finding much greater success when it comes to their more obscure characters. I mean, the whole MCU started off because of Iron Man. And Iron Man was a character who, for a long time, they were only keeping around just to fill out the roster of the Avengers. Nobody liked him. And nobody had even heard of Guardians of the Galaxy. People kind of thought Captain America was hokey, and Thor was just kind of considered a weird one. And yet now look, they're the most popular superheroes in Marvel. So I tend to gravitate more towards that stuff because I think Marvel's done it better there. Spider-Man Homecoming is still good, but like I said, plot-wise we've seen it before. Character-wise it sets itself apart, and I still do want to see where it's going, but at the same time I'm still more looking forward to what they're going to do with their other characters. So, there you have it. That's my take on Spider-Man Homecoming. So, what did you guys think? Feel free to leave your thoughts below, as always, and I'll get around to doing more videos next week. Until such time as we meet again, this is the Omni Viewer signing off.